the same in the moral sense. Let something supremely pitiful occur, and I would feel pity, just as I had when I had not been indifferent to everything in life. Indeed, I'd felt pity only a little while ago. I would certainly have helped the child. Why then had I not done so? Because of a thought which had occurred to me at the time when I was tugging and calling out to me. A certain question had crossed my mind, and I had been able to answer it. The question was an idle one, but I was angered because it followed me that once I resolved to do any I do away with myself that night, that everything in the world must perforce be a matter of indifference. Indeed, more so than ever before. Why then this sudden sense I was not indifferent, and that I felt pity for the girl? I recall that I did pity her very much, to the point of experiencing a strange aching feeling, utterly incredible in the situation I was in. Really, I can't convey the fleeting sensation any more satisfactory, but also I persisted at home when I sat down at the table, and I was exasperated in a way I had not been for long enough. Argument succeeded argument. It, it seemed clear that if I were a man and not yet zero, while I had not yet become that zero, then I was alive, and consequently I could suffer, become angry, and feel shame for my actions. Very well, but then, if I should kill myself in 2 hours' time, say, that what would the little girl be to me, and what would shame and indeed anything in the world mean to me? I am reducing myself to a cipher, an absolute zero. And can it be that awareness that I'm that of my imminent absolute extinction, and the consequence that nothing will exist, has not had the slightest influence either on my feelings of pity for the little girl or my shame at a mean-spirited action? After all, the reason I stamped my foot at the unfortunate child and brutally shouted at her was because I told myself, not only am I deaf to pity, but even if I commit some inhuman villainy, I can't do that now, because in 2 hours' time all will be extinguished. You believe that's why I shouted? I am almost convinced now that I was so that it was so. I am almost convinced now that it was so. It seemed evident that life and the world depended on me. One might go so far as to say that the world was created for me alone, and as I were, I will show myself, and the world would cease to exist, at least for me. Not to mention that perhaps nothing will exist for anyone after me, and that the whole world, as soon as my consciousness is extinguished, will pass away like a phantom, as an attribute from my consciousness, and will abolish itself, since perhaps all this world and all these people are but my own self. I remember as I sat there debating, I turned all these novel questions crowding in upon me, one after the other, in another direction entirely, and devised something altogether new. For example, a strange notion suddenly occurred to me that if I had formerly lived on the moon or on Mars, and had there perpetrated the most shameful and dishonorable action, ashamed for that action or not. These questions were idle and irrelevant, since the revolver was already lying in front of me, and I knew with every fiber of my being that it would certainly take place. But they exceeded and infuriated me. Somehow, I was now unable to die without having first resolved something. In a nutshell, the little girl had saved me. My questioning had postponed the bullet. Meanwhile, in the captain's room, things were also quieter. They had finished playing cards and were settling down for the night, grumbling the while and lazily exchanging a last curse. At this point, I abruptly dropped off to sleep in my chair at the table, something that had never happened to me before. I didn't know that this is happening at all. Dreams, as we know, were extremely strange things. Some parts have a horrific clarity, a jeweler finishing the details, while another part are skipped over without any account of space and time. Dreams seem to be driven according to one's desire, rather than reason, the art, not the brain, and yet, what prodigies of complexity did my reason sometimes perform when I dreamed? Absolutely inconceivable. Things happened, too, in my dreams. My brother, for example, died 5 years ago. Sometimes I see him in my dreams. He takes a hand in my affairs. We get engrossed, and yet, throughout the entire length of a dream, I know and remember that my brother is dead and buried. How on earth can I fail to be surprised that, despite being dead, he is busy at my side? Why does my reason permit all this without demur? Still, enough of that. Let me proceed to my dream. Yes, that was when I had that dream of mine, the 3rd of November. They tease me nowadays because it was just a dream after all. But does it matter whether it was a dream or not? If that dream revealed the truth to me, for once you have learned the truth and seen it, you know, it really is the truth that there is and can be no other, whether you're asleep or awake. Well, if it was a dream, what if it was? This life you cry up so much is what I wanted to extinguish by suicide. Whereas my dream, oh, it has revealed to me great, new, regenerated intensity in life. Listen. We're now going to chapter 3. I said that I fell asleep without noticing, while apparently still debating over the matters I mentioned. All of a sudden, I dreamed that I picked up the revolver, and as I sat there, aimed it straight at my heart. The heart, not the head. I had actually planned beforehand to shoot myself in the head, in the right tempo to be precise, aiming at my chest. I paused for a second or two, and my candle, table, and wall abruptly began to shift and sway. I quickly fired. Sometimes in dreams you fall from a height, you're slashed or beaten, but you never feel pain. Unless you actually do knock yourself against the bed, then you do feel pain. And it almost always wakes you up. So, it was in my dreams I felt no pain, but it seemed that after my shot, everything inside me was convulsed and suddenly extinguished. It grew horribly black all around me. I seemed to be blind and dumb as I lay stretched out on my back on something hard. I could see nothing and was incapable of the least movement. People around me walking and shouting, the captain's bass, the landlady's struck in me that I was actually dead, quite dead. I knew this was an indubitable fact. I could not see or move, and yet I could feel and think. But I quickly fell in with the situation, and as usually happens in dreams, accepted the reality without protest. Now, they were burying me in the earth. Everyone went away, and I was alone. I did not move, whether I had daydreamed about being buried. I had always associated a grave solely with cold and damp. No, I did feel very cold, especially the tips of my toes, but beyond that, I felt nothing. I lay there and oddly anticipated nothing, accepted without argument that a dead man has no expectations, but it was damp. I don't know how much time elapsed, an hour, a day, many days, but then, all of a sudden, a drop of water seeping through the coffin lid fell on my closed left eye. It was followed a minute later by another, then a minute later by a third, and so on and on at regular minute intervals. Profound indignation flared in my heart, and I suddenly felt a physical pain there. It's my wound, I thought, the shot. There's a bullet there. And the drops kept falling every minute directly on my closed eye. I abruptly appealed, not with my voice, as I could not move, but with my entire being, so the arbiter of all that was happening to me. However thou art, of thou art, and if there exists something more rational than what is taking place at present, then granted may have sway here too. If you hear any background noise, my flatmate just came home, and she's on the phone. So I hope you don't hear anything. You shouldn't, but I hear it in my earbuds. Hopefully you don't. However, if thou art the vengeance for my ill-advised suicide, with the demeaning absurdity of continued being, then no torture which may be applied to me will ever be comparable to the mute contempt I shall feel throughout my martyrdom. Though it last a million years, I made my appeal and fell silent. A profound silence lasted for almost a minute, and another drop of water fell. But I knew and trusted with boundless and unshakable conviction that things will certainly change soon, and all at once my grave opened wide. I mean, I did not know whether it had been opened up or dug open, but I was caught up by some unknown mysterious creature, and we found ourselves out in space. I suddenly recovered my sight. It was the deep of the night. Never had there been such blackness. We drifted through space. By now, far away from Earth. I did not ask whether it was scaring me, whatever was scaring me, any questions. I waited and retained my pride. I assured myself that I was not afraid. He fairly fainted with rapture at the thought that I felt no fear. I don't recall how long we drifted, nor can I conceive it. Everything took place the way it always does in dreams, when you skip over space, time, and the laws of being, and reason pausing wholly at points. The heart feels reason for shooting myself in the heart. And here I was in the grasp of a creature, of course not human, but which existed. So then there is a life beyond the grave, I thought, with that strange levity of dreams, but the essential nature of my mind remained with me in all its intensity. And if I have to be again, I thought, and I thought and live again at someone's inexorable behest, then I don't want to be overmastered and humiliated. You know that I am afraid of you, and that you despise me for it, I said suddenly to my companion, unable to hold back the meaning question, which concealed an admission, and sensing my own humiliation like the prick of a needle in my heart, it did not reply to my question. But I had a sudden feeling that I was no longer despised or mocked, or even pitied, and that our journey had an end in view, one that was unknown and mysterious and concerned me alone. Fear grew within me. Something mutely agonizing was conveyed to me by my silent companion, and seemed to pierce my being. We were passing through dark, unfamiliar regions of space. I had long ceased to make out the constellations I could identify. I knew that there existed stars in the depths of space, whose light took thousands, even millions of years to reach the earth. Perhaps we had already winged out our way beyond these expanses. I was waiting for something in the anguish tormenting my heart. Then, quite suddenly, a familiar and utterly peculiar emotion shook me. I saw our son. I knew it couldn't be our son, which had given birth to our earth, and that we were in an infinite distance from our sun. But I realized with all my being that it was exactly the same kind of sun as ours, its duplicate and double. A sweet, seductive emotion struck chords of ecstasy within my soul. My heart responded to the familiar power of the light which had begot me, and I revived. I felt a sense of life, my former life, for the first time since my interment. I felt a sense of life, my former life, for the first time since my interment. But if this is the sun, if this is exactly the same sun as ours, I cried, then where is the earth? My companion pointed out a little star glittering like an emerald in the darkness. We're floating straight towards it. Surely there can't be duplications like that in the universe. Can it really be the law of nature? And if that is an earth over there, can it possibly an earth just like ours? Exactly the same. Wretched, poor, ever beloved, inspiring in its most ungrateful children the same poignant affection. I cried, racked with irresistible rapturous love for that dear old former earth I had left behind, the image for a poor little girl I had wronged flashed before me. You will see it all, responded my companion, and a kind of grief echoed in his words. But by now we were swiftly approaching the planet. It grew before my eyes. I could already make out the ocean, the outline of Europe, and all at once a strange emotion, as of a great, holy jealousy, flared up in my heart. Could there be such a duplicate, and why? I love and can only love that earth which I have left behind, which bears the splashes of my blood, earth I have left behind. I seek to suffer in order to love. I long at this moment to kiss, bathed in tears, only that earth I have left behind. I do not want and will not accept any other sort of life. But my companion had already left me. All at once, I was standing, almost without being aware of it, on that other earth, in the bright sunlight of a paradisial day. I was apparently standing on one of the islands which, on our earth, make up the Greek archipelago, or somewhere on the coast of the mainland, adjoining that archipelago. It was all exactly as with us, but it seemed that everyone glowed with a kind of festive air, some great sacred triumph finally achieved. The tender emerald sea lapped quietly against the shores, caressing them with a love which was obvious, palpable, almost conscious. Tall, beautiful trees stood, clad in the full luxuriance of their blossom. Their numberless leaves, I am convinced, greeted me with a low, caressing murmur, seeming to utter words of love. The grass sparkled with bright, sweet-smelling flowers. Flocks of birds flew across the skies, and quite unafraid of me, perched on my shoulders, and hands and gladly fluttered their dear little wings at me. And finally I saw and recognized the people of this happy earth. They came to me, of their own volition, surrounding me, kissing me. The children of the sun, children of their own sun. How beautiful they were. Never on our earth had I seen such beauty in a person. Perhaps only in our children. In their very earliest years, might one have found some distant, feeble reflection of that beauty. The eyes of these happy people sparkled, limpid and lustrous. Their faces radiated intelligence and kind of consciousness, which had attained on the condition of serenity. But these faces were blithe and childlike. Gaiety echoed in their words and voices. At the first sign of their faces, I immediately comprehended everything. It was an earth, yet undefiled by the fall. It was inhabited by sinless people who lived in that paradise in which, according to the tradition of all mankind, our sinful ancestors had lived, with this difference that the entire earth here was one and the same paradise. These people, smiling gladly, crowded around me, showering with affection. They took me to their homes, and each of them sought to set me at ease. Oh, they did not ask me any questions. It was as if they knew all about it already, and they sought to drive the suffering from my face as quickly as they were able. Chapter 5. Actually, 4. Chapter 4. Again, you see. Well, alright, so it was just a dream, but the feeling of love from those innocent, beautiful people has remained with me ever since, and I sense their love pouring down on me from yonder even now. I saw them myself, got to know them thoroughly, and was won over. I loved them, and later suffered on their account. Oh, of course, I realized at once, even at the time, that there was much about them that I would never comprehend fully. It seemed baffling to me that a modern, progressive, and They desired nothing, and they were serene. They did not strive for knowledge of life as we do. Because of them, life was complete in itself, but their knowledge was both higher and more profound than our science. For our science seeks to explain what life is, seeking to comprehend it in order to teach others to live. They knew very well how to live without science, and that I understood, but I could not comprehend their knowledge. They pointed out their trees to me, and I could not understand the degree of love with which they looked on them. It was as if they talked of creatures like themselves. And I know, perhaps, it won't be far wrong if I say that they used to talk to them. Yes, they had discovered their language, and I'm convinced that the trees understood them. They looked on all nature in this fashion. The animals who live peaceably alongside them never attacked them, indeed loved them. Tamed by the love they themselves received, they pointed out the stars to me, and they spoke of something beyond my comprehension. But I'm certain that they were in contact with the celestial stars, not just in an intellectual sense, but in some actual physical fashion. No, these people never tried to get me to understand them. They loved me without that, but I also knew that they would never comprehend me, and therefore rarely spoke to them of this earth of ours. All I did was kiss the earth they lived on and adore them wordlessly. And they saw this and allowed themselves to be adored, unembarrassed at my worship because they themselves loved so much. They were they were not distressed on my account when I sometimes used to kiss their feet, knowing with gladness in their hearts of the power of their reciprocal love. At times I would ask myself my astonishment, how did they contrive over all that time not to offend someone like me, and not arouse feelings of jealousy and envy in such individuals as myself. Time and again I asked myself how I regret and liar, a braggart and liar, could refrain from talking to them of my own learning, of which naturally they had no conception or experience, no desire to astonish them in some such fashion, if only out of love I bore them. They were as gay, as frolicsome as children. They would roam about their beautiful woods and fields as they sang their delightful songs. They ate sparingly of the fruits of their trees, the honey of their forests, and the milk of their affectionate animals. Their food and clothing cost them only brief labor. Love was known among them, and children were born, but never came across any of those outbursts of cruel sensuality which affect virtually everybody on our earth, each and every one of us, and which represents the unique source of almost all the sins of mankind. They rejoiced at the children who were apparelled as at the new participants in their bliss. There were no quarrels between them and no jealousy. They did not even understand what that was. Their children were all children of all, because they all made up one family. They had virtually no alignments. Though that did exist, the old people died peacefully, falling asleep, as it were, surrounded by people bidding them farewell. They blessed them smiling and receiving. They blessed them smiling and receiving bright smiles in return. I saw no griefs or tears during all this, nothing but love mounting a serene, fulfilled, contemplative ecstasy. One might even have thought that they maintained contact with those who had already passed on, and that the earthly communion was not disrupted by death. They could barely understand me when I used to ask them about eternal life, but they were evidently so instinctively assured of it that it did not constitute a problem for them. They had no shrines, but they did have a kind of constant vital living communion with the universal. They had no religion creed. Instead, they were secure of knowledge that when their earthly joy reached the uttermost limit of earthly nature, they would come from both the living and the dead, a still ampler breadth of contact with the universal whole. They awaited that moment with gladness, but unhurled, without worrying themselves about it. It was as if they kept it among the emotional anticipations which they communicated to one another. Of an evening before retiring, they enjoyed composing tuneful and harmonious choruses. In their songs they conveyed all the emotions which the day past had furnished them, glorifying the bidding it farewell. They hymned nature, the earth, the sea, the forest. They were fond of composing songs about each other, and praised one another like children. These songs were of the plainest, but they welled out from the heart and pierced the hearts of others. Nor was it just in the songs. They seemed to pass their whole lives in feasting their eyes on one another. It was a kind and mutual love affair, complete and universal. Their other songs, solemn and rapturous, I could barely grasp. Though I understood the words, I could never penetrate the core of their meaning. It remained inaccessible to my mind, even though my heart unconsciously became increasingly suffused with it. I frequently used to tell them that I had felt a premonition of all this long ago, when back on our earth all this gladness and praise had taken the form of a seductive longing, rising at times to a pitch of unbearable grief, that I had foreseen them all enter praise in the dreams of my heart, in the visions of my mind, that often I could not watch a sunset without tears, that in my hatred towards the people of our earth there was always an element of anguish. Why could I not hate them without loving them? Why couldn't I deny them forgiveness? Why was there this anguish in my love? Why couldn't I love them without hating them? They listened to me and saw that they were unable to conceive what I was talking about, but I did not regret telling them about it. I knew that they understood the intensity of my anguish over those I had left behind. Yes, when they looked at me with their sweet, love-laden glances, when I felt that among them my heart too was becoming as innocent and truthful as theirs, as I had no regrets over not understanding them, my breath failed me, and the awareness of the plenitude of my life, I'd silently worshipped them. Oh yes, nowadays everyone laughs in my face and assures me that in dreams one simply cannot see the sort of detail I now recount, that everything I saw or experienced in my dreams was the emotion engendered by my heart in its wild imaginings, and that I added the details after I had woken up, and when I declared to them that perhaps all this had actually taken place. Lord, what laughter went up, intact in lacerated heart, in my lacerated heart. As against this, the actual images and forms of my dreams, that is, those I actually saw during that time of my dream, attained such harmony, were so intrinsically beautiful and so true that I awoke. I wasn't able to embody them in our feeble words, so they must have become blurred in my mind, as I were, and as consequence, perhaps I myself was unconsciously forced to invent the details, naturally distorted them, especially in view of my heart's passionate desire to convey them quickly and in whatever form. On the other hand, how on earth could I not believe that it had all taken place? Perhaps it had been 1,000 times better, more radiant, more joyous than the way I have recounted it. It may have been a dream, but it cannot be that it did not take place, you know. I'm going to tell you a secret. All this perhaps was no dream at all, because something happened, something so horribly real, that I could not have been figmented in a dream. Granted, my heart gave rise to the dream, but surely my heart alone could not have engendered a reality so grim as that which I experienced. How could I alone have invented that, or my heart dreamed it into being? Surely my shallow heart and paltry vagaries. Surely my shallow heart and paltry vagaries of my mind could not exalt themselves to such elevation of truth. Oh, judge for yourself. I have been dissembling